And welcome back, everybody, to the Pat Flynn Show. We are joined once again by the legendary strength coach, Dan John, according to Men's Health magazine. Dan, how you feeling?
Well, according to Men's Health, I'm healthy.
And legendary.
And I'm a man. So I put two on the title of that magazine. That's why I had to get rid of Men's Fitness. I wasn't fit anymore. So, I had to.
Hey, fair enough. Hey, really enjoyed our little 300 swings jam session. That was really cool, and I got a lot of good feedback on that. So in case you missed it on Instagram, Dan and I live streamed a 300 swings workout a couple days ago.
Okay, so here's the dealio, as the one guy says in that one show, and I don't remember who it was. So yesterday I did my double red donation, blood donation, especially for the gentlemen listening. One of the best things males can do is donate blood. And weirdly, yesterday, my hematocrit with the the new numbers, I was at 17.2. With the old numbers, I was just over 50. That's the level of iron in my blood. I feel better at 43, 42, 44. The new numbers 14, 15. So whatever's been going on the last few months, and maybe we can blame the 10,000 swing challenge. The phlebotomist thinks it's the fact that I eat so much meat. But when the hematocrit level starts to rise, which is great for ultra distance, the downside is that it also, some argue, can tick you over to the heart attack side. So,
sure.
Gentle listeners, it's one of the greatest things you can do for the community. It is truly a gift. It is the gift of life. Number two, for the gentleman listening, it is great for your health. And then thirdly, you get to eat cookies after without guilt because, hey, man, you just gave blood. So that is my every so often push to recommend for every benefit you can think of, donating blood.
Right. Almost all upsides, virtually zero downsides. Yeah. Go give some blood. That's Dan John's opening lesson. Very good. Very appreciated.
Yeah. And so my point on this, so when I do this thing called Power Red, I give 2 whole units of blood. They give me the plasma back, thankfully. But for about a day or so, when I pick up a piece of paper off the floor, I end up right next to it. I get a little. So I'm thinking, Patrick, that you and I should organize a swing party, not this week, but maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Because if we said 7, it won't work. But yeah. You and I pick 2 days a week, and we swing party.
I love it.
And the thing about the 2 days a week is I believe one day, let's even start with one. I believe it's repeatable and doable, kind of like our podcast every week.
Yeah, do some swings, answer some questions. I loved it. It was a great format. And Instagram seems to be the place to do it because we can have both of us on the same screen. I don't know how to do that on YouTube. So if there's a tech person listening and you know how I could stream Dan onto YouTube with me, I would love to hear from you. Email me at chroniclesofstrength.com because on Instagram, I can just invite you onto my feed.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that on YouTube. It might be something simple and I'm just ignorant. So audience members, if you can help with this, I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, Dan, I love the idea in general.
Well, Patrick, real quick, you're not ignorant because you're asking. You see, ignorant is what you ignore. And your wonderful insight here is you reached out to the world and you said, hey,
help me.
Walk me this path.
Help me as we try to help you. Yes. So that'd be great. No. All right. So we'll chat, maybe behind the scenes here and organize something and then announce it when we get it. But hey, real quick, another thing I wanted to mention to you, I was out driving the kids around the other day. So I got to catch up on a few podcasts. It's funny. I make a lot of podcasts. I listen to very few because I don't have a commute, like I just don't listen to podcasts.
I've forgotten. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, so I don't listen to many podcasts, but one of the ones I was able to listen to the other day was your appearance on the show, The Art of Manliness. Very fun show, very varied, enjoyed it. Really great episode, and I want to link to it in the show notes because you talk about, and I want to build on it, if you don't mind, in the beginning of our conversation here, on a theme that comes up a lot in the question box here at the Pat Flynn Show, and that is the theme of standards. Dan, Pat, what should I be able to do? People always, this is definitely one of the most common questions that we get of people just want to be able to know what threshold should I be meeting or what sort of minimum standard should I be meeting? And on the episode you did with, his name's Brett, is it?
Brett McKay, yeah.
Brett McKay. You went through your basic assessments, stuff we've talked about previously on this show before. So I don't want to repeat too much of it, but I wanted to say, awesome episode. We'll link to it, and maybe we could jam around on other standards, maybe even kettlebell specific standards here if you're down for it.
Yeah. So what I liked about our conversation is I was allowed to go back and I'll just say it in English. George Herbert, the great French, well, he's the captain of the ship who had that wonderful insight. People who survive volcanoes on an island have a certain skill set. And that skill set should probably be taught, should be discussed, expanded upon. That's part one, and I think that's really important. And I added to his skill set riding a bicycle and swimming, because I think those are life-saving skills. And I do mean that.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that the bicycle one I learned with the American Red Cross. And a real quick side story, we were getting ready for the 2002 Olympics here. I was an administrator, so I had to do all this. It was not fun. I mean, it was right after 9/11, Pat. And
oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And we were having an international event in the United States. And we went from like, well, it's going to be wonderful, and to like, oh my God, we really, and I don't have them anymore, but I had a little, you had a jacket with a color to represent that I was safe in the area. I was like, so many things. But one of the things that one of the emergency courses I took was count the overpasses on the way home. I live in an earthquakey area. And the person said, because most of them will be down. And I thought, well, how do you get around? Well, your Volkswagen won't, but your bicycle will. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's very simple stuff. It's, the big things like you should have a basic ability to be balanced, to climb, to, crawl, climb, the basics.
Sure.
So that's where we should start with physical education, on the basics. But then in life, you get to be 63 and people want to know, well, just tell me what I should be doing. And that's what standards are. Mm-hmm. Well, that was long-winded. I apologize.
Yeah, it was good. And that's what you talked a lot with Brett. You have your being able to get up and off the ground, stand on one foot. Like, it doesn't sound very sexy, but we know, especially being able to get up and off the ground, there's a very strong correlation there with longevity. So yes, it isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it's an important thing.
Hanging from a bar for 30 seconds is probably the least sexy thing I've ever said in my life. But if you can't, why? Well, because I got that bad shoulder. So when are you going to deal with that bad shoulder? Because I can guarantee a decade from now, that bad shoulder isn't going to be shockingly better. If your shoulder hurts at 63, trust me, at 73, it's not going to be better. It's magically, Harry Potter comes in, bing, a shoulder fixius, let's build upon that, right? Let's say, okay, we've got people, hopefully more people than not, who kind of meet these baseline standards of that divides the living from the dead in most cases, right? We could even use me, if you want to pick on me a little bit, Dan. What should somebody like me, right? Say somebody between the ages of, I don't know, you probably have the definitions a little bit more straight than I do, but 25 and 45. Okay. Men and women, pretty healthy around the board, want to be good generalists, want to be fit in a robust sense, but they're not hardcore specialists. What are you looking at? What are you thinking about? I would say you should be able to bench your body weight, probably 5 pull-ups. I think 5 is a good number for men. It doesn't, and by the way, if you can only do 3, gentle listener, good for you. You can do 3. Yeah. I think you should be able to squat, a genuinely squat body weight. So if you weigh 180, you should be able to squat 180.
Front squat or back squat?
Let's just any squat variation.
Any squat you want, yeah. Okay.
Here's a nice idea, and I actually did this at a workship one time. Well, great, it was a good question. So back squat, and then front squat, then overhead squat. Trust me, if you can overhead squat body weight for 1, in that fact, that's one of the things Phil Maffetone talks about in his new book, doing overhead squats, every hour, just whenever you can throughout the day. And I thought, man, I would love to meet the person who overhead squats a set of 5, 8 times a day. Because, that person working with that person is going to be a lot easier than working with the person who can't get up off the toilet.
Right. Yeah. You need a fair number of ducks in a row to be able to check that box. Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to the hinge movement, I would say a body weight and a half deadlift. I think that would be something. And I am a big believer that you should be able to walk with your body weight. Mm-hmm. So if I give you, Patrick, what do you weigh issue about now?
Yeah, I fluctuate between 155 and 160. I'm a pretty light guy.
If I load 160 on a trap bar, high handle trap bar, and I said, pick it up and walk a few feet with it, would you be able to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who's lifted would be like, yeah, I could, those, Dan, now the other issue is this. So to me, that's what I call those expected. That's kind of what I expect. After that, let's go to the other one, what I call the game changers, which is a terrible word because no one seems to understand it. If you can bench your body weight for 15, you can do 15 pull-ups. You can back squat, front squat, overhead squat, your body weight for 15. If you can deadlift double body weight, if you can pick up and walk with double body weight, quit trying to fix things in the weight room.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good policy. I like that.
So if all you want out of the weight room is to be a better father or mother, or all you want out of the weight room is to be able to play in a pickup football league or something, whatever it is, mm-hmm. You're strong enough. You don't need to add more.
Yeah, I love that idea because there's got to come a point where, you have to recognize, yeah, I have a deficiency here. We don't want to be going around with a flat tire like you talk about, Dan. Yeah. But we also have to recognize when, for example, strength is no longer our problem.
That's it right there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're a natural person and you're at 7% body fat as a male. Leanness is no longer your problem. You've got leanness. You got that covered.
Right.
Okay. You're a gentleman runner and you ran a 2:30 marathon. Well, it's just phenomenal.
Whatever your problem is, it ain't that.
Yeah. And what you need to do now is if you haven't achieved the goal you're looking for, let's now talk about what is the gap, what is missing. Mm-hmm. So there's two sides to it if you can follow this. First off, my job is to look for your gaps and then to give you some standards. If you've never done an authentic squat in your entire life, there's your gap. When you overhead squat your body weight for 15 reps, that's no longer, you're up to an incredibly high standard. That's no longer your gap. If you're not at the level you want to be in that goal, it's something else. We're missing something obvious.
Right. Yeah. An obvious example would be, doing more in the weight room when the weight room isn't your issue. What goes on in the kitchen or between the hours of 6 and 10 p.m. at night. That's the issue, right? So some of this is sort of just an auditing process and trying to get very honest with yourself, which is a hard thing to do. I think it was, as Mark Twain, you have a quote that said, nobody is completely honest with themselves until they're dead, and they still find a way to lie even after that.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel, once again for stepping up. Yeah, that's exactly right. The lies we tell ourselves. That's very good. I have to be completely honest about my own situation, well, and I think I've mentioned this before, but, my daughter, Lindsay, is expecting Leo Hemingway Robinson in sooner than later now. And I did grandpa math on that the other day. Patrick, when Leo turns 7, I'll be 70, and not too many people in my family make it to 70. When he gets his driver's license, I'm going to be 80. And on the top of my head, I can't think of anybody in my family who's made it to 80.
Now, my question for you there, Dan, is no, sorry, finish your thought, then I'll chime in. Yeah.
So if my goal is to be a vibrant part of Leo's life, pressing the beast 14 reps versus 13 isn't going to help.
Yeah. Right. So now, my family has okay longevity, but I'm curious for you, are you something of an anomaly in your family in terms of somebody who really takes an active role in your physical health and strength, or is...
We're kind of all over the place, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of my family too.
we're a very military, very athletic family. But my brother Gary, by the way, still, I mean, he was a All-American distance runner who, when his son went to high school, his son came home and says, Coach wants me to throw the discus. What's that? And Gary said, well, you know, your Uncle Dan knows something. And Gary started coaching the discus and the shot and the javelin, I think, and then started picking it up for himself. And now he's he's ranked internationally as a master's 70 to 74-year-old hammer thrower.
Wow.
So, yeah, so Gary stays involved. Richard, God bless him, and he's 75. He's going to be turning 76 here soon. I think Richard hasn't exercised since I was in the 9th grade. And so Ray is really ill right now. He got hit with Agent Orange when he was in Vietnam, and that the debilitating effects of that chemical is, you know, destroying him. And I don't know how much longer we'll have him. My sister Corrine has physical issues, and of course my brother Phil is no longer with us. So by God, that was dismal. Okay, so
yeah, accounting for your family often can be a painful process. Yeah.
Gentle listener, give me a moment here. I don't know if I could be more candid in our podcasts, Patrick.
Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate it, Dan, and that's certainly something that I really enjoy about these conversations. We don't come in with an agenda. We just talk. Yep.
So my wife's family, the Hemingways, they live, you know, God, her grandmother died at 102. Most of them lived in the late 90s. And, you know, I mean, so, you know, it's the luck of the draw, you know.
A lot of it is, right? And that's the kind of, you know, the dance and I guess, you know, what you also have to accept. Well, we know like statistically, if you focus on your health and you exercise and you try to eat healthy, it improves your odds. But at the same time, you can't help but be annoyed by those anomalies. So the person who seemingly does all the wrong things and lives to 125 years old, and the person who checks every right box in terms of, you know, doing all the quote unquote right things and then has a stroke at 47. Well, now, again, in the grand statistics, you can't be distracted by those, but you can't help but be a little bit bothered by them. You know what I mean? Uh-huh.
You know, because outliers are outliers, and they make a much better story.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, I always reference Jack LaLanne, the great, really probably a man who had more influence on me than I even think. His YouTube videos, you know, from the 1950s and early 60s are still as good as anything we do. You know, he lived, I think, to 96. And of course, his brother, who never did anything, lived to 97. So, you know, the guy who swam to Alcatraz carrying a boatload of people with his hands and feet chained lives to 96, and his brother who did nothing, 97.
Right. Yeah. It's both. But of course, the genetic luck of the draw plays a big part of it. And of course, just life circumstances, you know, walking down the street and could be flattened by a bus. Could have done everything right up to that point, but
you know, Dick Notmeyer, my coach, said 50% of it's genetics, 40% is lifestyle, and 10% is sheer dumb luck.
It's just stuff happening, right? Yep. So,
you know, I had a friend of mine recovering from a back surgery that wasn't perfect. He's just making strides forward. He gets T-boned by a teenager who's cut class.
Man,
and
terrible.
Of course, the problem with that is there was a whole new set of back problems. So what do you think?
You know, it's cliche, it's become cliche, but it's still, I think, deeply important. You know, memento mori, you know, live every day as if it very well might be your last, because it could be. You know, it really, and you don't want to, like, you know, live in perpetual fear or anxiety, but it means prioritize, you know, just keep that in mind. It's something I try to remember, because, you know, I take it for granted. I'm relatively, I think, quite healthy. I have a doctor's appointment coming up, so we'll verify that soon, but I don't expect that I'm going to die from a heart attack this week. Right. But something else could happen. It could, right?
What's that play they do in high school all the time? It's where they have a ladder, and the girl dies, and she goes to the graveyard, and you're allowed to go back you're allowed to go back among the living, and And what she realizes is that no one appreciates life. It was a high school standard for a long time. That's out of my gentle listener, if you remember. It's too late already. But the idea that she comes back and tries to talk to the living about what a gift life is, and the living ignore it. And it is a gift. And the cliche that comes out of the Kung Fu Panda movie. Life. What is it? Life is a gift. That's why we call it the present, or something like that. I might have reversed
it. Yeah, I know. Was that Master Oogway? Was that one of his?
Yes. What? But
I have these movies pretty much memorized because of my kids at this point.
Yeah, I remember that. God, ours was Little Mermaid. Jeez.
I was, as if anybody cares, but I was a Jungle Book growing up. That was the one I watched on repeat.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Kid, yeah.
But we have the same situation here. Yeah. So you're right. And one of the things is you could do all my standards and get hit by a bus.
This is the good news podcast.
You're standing there on one foot, and boom, you get hit by. I was in London one time, and I feel my wife tugged me back. And what had happened is a double-decker bus had just gone by, and the window on it is right at Dan John's face height.
Ooh.
And I felt the wind of and I just think to myself, that would have been a great way to die. Strength legend, as you said.
No, not me. Men's Health. I agree with it, of course.
Strength legend Dan John hit by
flattened by double-decker bus. No, we pray for many more years with Dan John, of course. But anyway, to a more optimistic note, of course, all this is to say is some things are beyond your control. And what's the Serenity Prayer? I love the Serenity Prayer. Like, God, give me the courage to work on the things I can change, the acceptance to embrace those that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? Like, it's very simple, but there's this that's right? That's because what else are you going to do? What else could you possibly do, right?
You and I live in the 40%, and you have to know that. So
right.
We're talking about longevity. Everything I talk about is a 40%, but it's 40% is big.
Right.
And again, the 50% is what I talk about in sports all the time. Genetics and geography are hard to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to, growing up in the Bay Area when I did, being a discus thrower, I had advantages that some nice young man in Podunk, Wisconsin doesn't have, because he wasn't around all those elite throwers. I would take last place in meets with throws that were really good because there were 3 Olympians taking me down,
Right.
So genetics and geography, that's the 50%. You can't ignore it. And by the way, I do think geography is important in longevity discussions too.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And that even could tie in that 10% of luck. Don't smoke, wear your seatbelt, wear a helmet when appropriate, get a good night's sleep, floss your damn teeth, get medical checkups, try to catch things earlier than later.
Donate blood, go to the dentist.
Okay, I donated blood yesterday. I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. Folks, I'm do this stuff, okay? It's not, it helps, and it is true. And this is the decision you have to make, and you have to make it when you're about 14 years old, I think. That's why Herbert is so important. Do I want to live a life of quantity or quality? Because we really can't do much about the quantity truly, but the quality of life, we can really get our arms on. And like I said with Brett the other day, getting up from the toilet seems like such a simple thing to do. And yet that's the line in the sand on how you'll spend the last years of your life. Mm. Do you want to have someone wiping your ass in a rest home, or do you want to be climbing mountains at 63 or 73?
Yeah.
It really is up to you.
Yeah. Great advice. I remember as my grandparents were taking their kind of final turns, God rest them. I remember going into their house, and they had that, I don't even know what it was called, that giant throne on top of the toilet because they couldn't get up and down off of it. Right. Movement matters. Movement's important. Right. Mm-hmm.
And if the whiskey don't get me, I'll drink till I die. The great song, you know?
By the way, every time I see that Maker's Mark behind you, it makes me want to.
with,
Yeah.
with my work, my logo on it. Thank you, Parker and Paige. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. So, okay, so before we take some questions, Dan, how's your training been? Well, I mean, you donated blood, so that probably slowed things down a little bit. But what are you working on now that I know you're copping along a little bit with the 300 swings challenge, but anything else?
Yeah, as soon as I get kind of over the blood donation, and like I said before, gentle listener, I didn't respect the advice I was given in the past after Power Red. They said take it easy for a few days, and I never did. A time or two ago, I was like I was picking up a sock or something, and I noticed that myself was suddenly on the ground. I wouldn't say I passed out, but it wasn't my best moment because of the losing 2 whole units of blood and then trying to, you know, do double kettlebell front squats is not, it's probably not a good idea. So yesterday I did, I tried, oh, can I give you my little experiment I'm working on?
Oh, please. We'd love to hear what you're dabbling in.
Okay, so I gotta be, this is just, but anybody listening, so I did deficit deadlifts, which is basically a kettlebell deadlift up on risers, okay? And you could probably, most of you probably could do it at home without even, followed by an extremely heavy kettlebell swing. So pre-fatigue the butt with probably mid hundreds in a deadlift for about 8 to 10 reps.
Okay, so you're kind of going for more of the slow and intermediate twitch fibers. Little Devaney action here, maybe.
Slow, I mean, just up and down, and then step forward, pick up the 48. And I think I only needed 8 swings until my butt cheeks just lit up.
Just seized to high heaven.
So, I'm working on this little idea of a very simple kettlebell, not a complex, but more of a chain. The older word from about 100 years ago. A chain is when you move down. Okay, a chain is when you walk up to the kettlebell dumbbell rack and you do an exercise, then you move to the next weight and you do the same thing, and then you move. And you can go either direction, up or down. So a heavy deadlift, focusing on slow movement, really squeezing, stepping forward to a really heavy swing, and then stepping forward with the finisher of goblet squats is where my brain is working right now.
Very cool.
So you would, you know, the heaviest kettlebell you have, the second heaviest kettlebell you have, a really reasonable one. And what you're doing with the goblet squat is you're letting the quads push the glutes through. And remember, the glutes and the glutes hang on as long as they can, pardon me, because pardon me, if you're trying to save your life, your glutes are going to be involved. You know, if something bad happens, your glutes will get you out of danger. Still. Yeah. So they hang on as long as they can.
Do we have a name for this incredible new training technology, Dan?
The Dan John new dumb idea. It's a very advanced. No, it's there's nothing new. It would, you know, Brett Contreras's wonderful book, is it Strong Curves? Has that wonderful template of about, so hip thrust about 20 reps, and then you do like a goblet squat, then you do like a clamshell, you know, boom, boom, boom. He loves those 3 and 4 part glute things. And one lesson I've learned when you do stuff like this, and this is when you're working the glutes, it's kind of like doing loaded carries, 2 sets. I never repeat a loaded carry if this makes, so I'll do farmer walk down and back, and then I'll do a suitcase carry down and back. So I rarely do just farmer walks.
Sure, you're mixing it up.
I certainly do that, but what I like better is down and back, down and back, down and back, changing every single time. Keeps the brain fresh. You'll do it again next week.
Right. So how many days a week then are you doing this routine?
Well, right now it's just the once, and then today is guns and buns because it's Tuesday. But what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to get away. How can I get the glute work without doing the 500 swings a day? It makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, doing a set of deadlifts followed by a heavy swing followed by a goblet squat twice is what I mean honestly 5 minutes. I mean, and I mean that it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you've impacted the glute, and we'll move on. So it's the 10 swing challenge. There you go.
Beautiful. The 10
Not
swing
nearly as sexy as the 10,000. So for the next 2 days, do 10 swings.
So you, after you do a challenge, Dan, do you, so I guess it's kind of two questions here. One is, what is your next, because you did the competition fairly recently. You just did a 10,000 swings challenge. So anything else kind of looming on the horizon of things you just want to check off or complete, or are you going to kind of fall back into the maintenance type of routine?
Right, what I call park bench. Yeah.
Park bench, yeah.
One of the issues, and it'll be interesting about if people listen to this 3 or 4 years from now, one of the issues we're having right now with COVID is I'm trying to juggle what I actually can do. I mean, I have these workshops we've planned that I'm not getting reservations yet because I still don't know if I'm going to be able to hop on that plane.
We just moved after conversations with the master, and now we decided we have to do it virtual because we had people who signed up. God bless you guys for being patient with us, last year when we had to cancel. So this is our way of improvising. Yeah.
Can I do a 1 hour talk for you on that?
I would love it if we could get you involved in some sense.
Just tell me what day you want and topic, and I'll put together a PowerPoint for you. Love to.
Beautiful. Friends, you've heard it here first. Dan John will now be officially involved in our virtual Strong On certification. So
there's no charge for you, Patrick. Free. But I am going to double the rates next time.
By the way, since you gave me, I want to mention it real quick because I have an incredibly large box of Dan John DVDs. So I'm going to actually give some of those away, if you don't mind, Dan, to people who are involved in the cert. But also, I'm going to give some away on this episode right now. So you do something, you share it, you leave a comment, you leave a review, you email me. I'll pick a few people at random. I'll ship you. You actually gave me more than you promised, Dan, because I thought I was just going to get DVDs of you and Chip Conrad, but I got Now What DVDs and a bunch of different stuff. So take advantage, my friends. We'll give some away. So do something to help the podcast, share, review, comment, whatever, and email me, and I'll pick some people to ship. Yep. Awesome. Shall we do some questions, Dan?
I would live for it.
All right. Gentle listener Sam says, quick question. I think this is related to high rep swing workouts. 6 straight sets of 50 reps versus 10 reps every minute on the minute for 30 minutes. What are the pros and cons and benefits of these different structures?
Well, Sam, it's a good question. I'd say first and foremost, can you do the 50 reps and have good technique? Because to me, Sam, whenever we talk about high rep kettlebells, it comes down, can you hang on to the bell? And do you have to compromise your technique to hang on to the bell? Because I noticed I was starting to do that. One of the nice things I like about 10 reps every minute on the minute, it just doesn't seem very hard. But the nice thing I would say is that you would get a nice little, it'd be fun for you to chart your heart rate during that, Sam, because it would be kind of fun to watch it ebb and flow upwards the whole time. That would be a fun thing for you to look at. Probably only one workout because you're going to lose your freaking mind. So, maybe, and do me a favor, you can do this, Sam. Do your base heart rate. By the way, my heart rate with all those needles in me yesterday was 62, which made me very happy, which is not bad. One less than my age, which is, not bad considering there was a huge needle in my arm. And then after the first set, just if you have a good heart rate monitor, just write down, you start at 60 and it jumped to like 80, 85, right? That'd be 10. And then it came down and boom. It'd be fun to watch what happens in that 30-minute test. So the upside, if you don't mind me, of the 30-minute style is you can play around with other information like heart rate and some other things. Okay.
Yeah, that was good. The sets of 30 that we did on our live stream, that felt good.
That felt good. Really shocking. Yeah, that was a good number. So I hate to do this to Sam, but we have one more option for you. 10 sets of 30. Could you do 10 sets of 30 of every minute on the minute?
Ooh, that's gonna catch up to you pretty quick. Could it be done?
Yeah,
I think Dan John could do it.
it could. Yeah, it could be done. 10-minute workout. Ooh, that would be. Yeah, you would.
Depends on the load too, of course, right?
Yeah, the accumulation would be interesting. I hope that.
I loved what we did, right? We didn't really have a prescribed rest period. We did a set of 30, tried to make it look good, snappy, good swings, and 30 reps with a decent weight. You can do it. Your grip's going to be a little tired at the end, I think. Then we answered some questions. And then when we just felt ready, we just did another set. And, we moved at a pretty leisurely pace, but we still got it done within an hour, right?
That's why I want to do at least one day a week. You and I joining for swings, because the modeling I think is really going to be good. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a time we could do his idea,
sure.
But what we could do is one of us doing every minute on the minute, and the other one of us doing every half minute on the half minute, and so keep looping around. So when people are asking questions, one of us could be saying, coaching each other, and answering questions. Dan, there's a question when you finish, and then I would drop the F-bomb and I'd go, God.
Beautiful, very cool. Follow us on Instagram, listeners. Dan John is at Coach Dan John. I am at chroniclesofstrength.com, and we will announce when our next live swing hangout's going to be.
Great, perfect. Okay,
very cool. All right, next question. This one comes from gentle listener Pat. Awesome name.
Oh, sure, your name's
Pat, but Crow. So that's a cool last name. And we actually got this one on our live swing session, but maybe people haven't heard it, so it's worth taking again. But Pat wants to know, what do you look at with your eyes during the swings? I tend to look at a spot on the wall, and I'm not sure that is a good idea. So, Dan, I remember you brought this up in our session. I don't know, was this 10, 12 years ago? There's like huge debate on like head and neck position of the kettlebell swing. I mean, it got farcical how invested people got into. You remember what I'm talking about? I see you shaking your head.
Friends, enemies for life over this thing. Basically, I answer it eyes on the horizon. But when I train in my house, I don't have a good place. But what I realize is that watching you swing at the height of my was a perfect place for me to watch the other day. So basically what you want to do is get yourself, Pat, gentle listener Pat, I would suggest this: get on the floor, do a push-up position plank, feel that position, stand up, and then put one hand over the other in that position, squeeze your hands together, and then kind of look off into the distance to where your fingers are pointing. And that might be a really nice target for you for the whole time. And I think it helps to stare at a target. I think it actually helps to just glue your eyes on the target. But obviously, if you've had neck injuries or you've had some other issues, that might not be something you can do. But I think it's the best way.
Yeah, cool. All right, next one comes from gentle listener Avi. Avi wants to know, how would you recommend incorporating hill sprints into your training routine, if you do?
Well, first off, Avi, go to danjohn.net, and there's a book I have in the free book called A Contrarian Approach to the Discus Throw. And I'll give you, there's ways I use it I like hill sprints as part of a circuit. So I would send Pat over and I'd say, Pat, you need to run one hill during your 5 minutes, or 2 hills, or just whatever's appropriate. There's a great book. It's called Strictly Business, and it's Roger Craig. He was a 49er running back. He graduate of Nebraska. He's the one who famously fumbled that caused the Niners not to three-peat. And that's just one event. And he goes in great depth in one of his chapters on why hill sprints, and I can't do anything. I can't say it better than him. He talks about how Jerry Rice, I know this is American football references, but just trust me, if you're not an American football fan, this is the Mount Rushmore. Of course, if you're American, you don't know what I'm talking about either. But Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders, he just goes through this list of people who used hill sprints and about how important it is for training. I'm going to say something I can't defend 1,000,000%, but if you had a choice between squats and hill sprints, I would tell you to do hill sprints. If you brought a kettlebell with you, I'd have you do 8 kettlebell goblet squats, throw the bell down, and do a hill sprint as the perfect workout.
Yeah, cool. Well, actually, next question ties into that pretty strongly. It's a standards question. And like I said, people love the standards. And this comes from gentle listener. Let me see here. Andrew, and he wants to know, what are some strength standards specifically for the goblet squat?
Well, I would use Paul Lysingo's numbers. For men, what does he say? First off, be able to do one. That's a one. Be able to get in a position.
Be able to do one, yeah.
And if you can't, well, let's not have this conversation anymore until you do. And then I think he has for men the 24 kilo for 10. And
very reasonable, yeah.
Very reasonable. And then the next jump is 32K for 10. And then after that, really the kettlebell becomes more and more
awkward.
Certainly you could say double kettlebell 32s for 10, but I would look at that and go, holy, that would be double 32Ks for 10. That would tell me that you probably don't even need the weight room anymore, and then he goes all the way to back squat, front squat, overhead squat from there.
Right. And anybody who's done the heavier kettlebell front squat, it's a different exercise than barbell front squats. It's just very different, right? Mm-hmm.
For those of you who tried the Zercher squat, which is squats with the weight in the elbows, it has that Zercher feeling that it's just ripping on your abdominal wall. When you put the bells down, you'll understand what I mean about anaconda strength. You will feel that internal tension that's so important in the throwing arts, in the collision sports, I'm sure in the martial arts, that bracing feeling, and it's it doesn't let go.
Yeah, I think for the average size male experienced kettlebell user, if you can hit 10 reps with 2 by 32, that's a solid standard. Maybe 2 by 20, 24 for.
Yeah, on the doubles.
The doubles. This is, definitely.
24s for 10 would be illuminating. So it's a good question. We gave you, I think, really good answers. And remember, once you're doing double 32s for 10, now it's time to step back and go, okay, what's my next one?
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is like once you're at that point, give or take, whatever. Good.
Yeah.
Move on.
And unless you're going into a double kettlebell front squat competition, you've nailed it.
Yeah. Good. Awesome. Cool. All right. Next question is, let me pull up the window again. Gentle listener Sydney wants to know what our opinion is, Dan, of the steel mace use for developing functional strength. Do we have an opinion on that?
I don't like them at all, but you go ahead and answer.
Oh, I haven't used one in years. So I'm hesitant to speak from any type of position of authority on this, because I played around with some maces, and I really mean just played around, never did any type of serious training regimen with them. And fine, fair. I certainly wouldn't dismiss it entirely, but it has never been any type of regular feature of my training program.
As I say, sometimes a lot of things in our field fall out of favor, and very often it's for a good reason. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people miss that, Pat, is that you go back to a training book from 1915. And by the way, speaking of, if you want to see 2 training books from 1915, here are 2. So
what's that first one? What's that? The one with the red cover? Diet and Health?
Diet and Health, Key to Calories by Lulu Hunt Peters, which is a real classic in our field. And then Eat and Grow Thin and it's called the MATA method.
Eat and grow thin, like Think and Grow Rich. I love it.
Oh yeah. And so the thing is, just, gentle listeners, I spent a lot of time going through this stuff. I remember before the split between the RKC and Strong First, you'd go to a kettlebell cert, and about half the time I was there, especially if I wasn't running it, I would spend much of my time talking to the other instructors saying, this is a kettlebell cert, right? That we're supposed to be teaching the kettlebell here. Yeah, but I'm going to do another hour on Z Health. Yeah, well, that's fine if this
Oh
was.
yeah, I remember that. There was like a year or two there where it just got really kind of
Oh my
funky
goodness.
and blended and weird with all these other modalities of whatever. Yeah.
Someone would have one eye closed and they'd be twirling a finger, or they'd be reaching overhead and wiggling their baby finger. And then, there'd be an instructor in their hands-on group with a set of club bells showing the importance of shoulder flexibility. This is a kettlebell cert, right? And then well, Dan, are you using maces? Well, I would if this was a mace cert, or if it was 1931 and that's all we had. I have maces in my house. We call them Scottish hammers. And what I do is I pick them up and I whirl them around my head and I throw them for distance. And then a judge measures it and the crowd goes wild.
Good. Awesome.
I'm a grumpy old bastard, aren't I?
We will. Yeah. Yes, you are. All right. Next question is, what are the biggest payoff exercises for someone over the age of 60? And the person who wants to know this is gentle listener Dave.
Dave.
No last name, just Dave. So it could be any Dave.
Well, Dave, you should know that that's my confirmation name, Daniel Arthur David John. So I'll have to be nice to you. I would go back. Okay. I'm going to say a hinge variation and an overhead press variation. That's what little Danny John thought when he was 14. He's still right. Swings and kettlebell press overhead, deadlift and military press, a hinge and a press, because a loaded carry for work capacity, goblet squats for mobility. It's Dave. The list isn't going to be that different. If you do train in a weight room, I would suggest the goblet squat as a base warm up and probably even some as a finisher. Yesterday, for example, you're asking about my training. Yesterday, I used after I finished lifting, I did my hangs and my goblet squats. I think I did like maybe 4 or 5 rounds of 30 seconds. By the way, it was nothing heroic. It was just waiting for everybody else to finish. So sitting at the bottom of a goblet squat. So for mobility at your age, hanging from a pull-up bar, sitting in a goblet squat. Push those to the side. For your general being a human, a hinge variation and an overhead press variation, and then being helpful when your daughters move into a house, a loaded carry. And probably the suitcase carry would be the best one.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome.
You want one kettlebell? Go. Goblet squat to warm up, swings, half kneeling press, suitcase carry. There.
Beautiful. Love it. So as we wrap up here, Dan, any updates on the new book with Pavel? I know it's I know I bug you every week about it, but it's I'm looking for...
I sent him a whole bunch of information and I got a 1-word response. Excellent. So I don't know where that's heading. Except I've enjoyed it. As I told you last week, I had this great insight about easy strength and how it ties into some other things about life. And then it's so clear in my head, and then I have to write 8 chapters explaining something that's so obvious in my head. I really like a chapter I wrote. So I'm not a big believer in peaking, but I am a big believer in preparation for high level performance. Right. And I think there's a difference, and that chapter was on training the athlete to have a great stretch reflex, that bow and arrow feeling of elite performance. When you strike and kick in your world, when you throw in my world, it's the snap. Yeah, it's been fun. I've been kind of swimming around in different areas on the easy strength, trying to look for what one of the best things. I got her name is Rachel. She's on the Dan John University Forum, and she did such a good job. Do you have 10 seconds? Can I just read off what she said?
Yeah, go for it.
Real fast. Sorry, I know this is not always the best use of our Rachel. Oh, no, goodness.
And I want of course, we want the weekly updates of what's coming down the pipeline at the university as well.
Oh, well, right now it's just, everything's just wonderful.
Just perfect. Yeah. Just
having,
perfect.
having a guy like, hang on a second, I'm going to do it the old fashioned way. Okay. I apologize, gentle listeners, but she summarized it better than I've ever seen it summarized. So, come on. Sorry. Now I'm stuck in full screen. I don't want to be. Like you saw the other day, don't let the monkey play with the the computer. Okay, Rachel and I spelled Rachel wrong. That's why I couldn't find it. Yeah, I just have them lots and lots. She said this, and I like this really good. She says this is how she talks about load. Heavy, I can't quite do top speed, but the lift is smooth and controlled. I don't want to do more than prescribed. So if it says 2 sets of 5, it's smooth, controlled. I don't want to go any heavier. Medium, the bar or dumbbell or kettlebell or whatever moves fast, but feels satisfying. Could do more, don't need to. Light, I do the reps and I feel a bit antsy to do more.
That is a great, just qualitative description of something that people always want to put hard numbers to.
Yeah. And then she goes on, by contrast, for a sort of max, I can't move as fast. And if I consider doing more than 4, it wasn't a sort of max. And then, then she notes that women seem to have a different way of lifting at our heaviest. So we can usually do multiple reps at one weight, and adding even a little means no reps. And I just thought, boy,
that's right.
That is, I mean, you can't buy that kind of feedback. That's just too good. That's just way too good. And
yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, so she is. I really, really appreciate that insight from her. Yeah, so I'm trying to get that kind of information into the next book.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
People ask me all the time, Dan, what do you mean by heavy? And I love throwing numbers at the people because, well, back when I was cleaning 400, boy, I tell you, 365 would feel easy. So, maybe 365 for a couple.
Yeah.
And this look on people's face, like, wait, clean 365? Yeah, but just for a couple.
Just a few.
And I don't mean, but sometimes you really have to question the question.
Of course.
And that was something I learned, of course, studying philosophy in college, is that what Dr. Johnson was so good about is sometimes you have to take a moment to look at don't answer the question, try to figure out why are you at, what is going on with your question that really needs to be answered.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Dan, any new workshops come out on the YouTube channel or at Dan John University? What do you want to leave people with anticipating, if you will?
Well, I'm going to be doing, and I already did it. I sent, Sleep Sound or something like that asked me for a 10-minute, what would you tell a young coach? Real quick, I'll save you the time. Embrace the obvious, invest wisely in asymmetrical risks, and respect the process. That's what I tell you.
Yeah, cool.
And that, by the way, embrace the obvious is the hardest thing for a young coach to learn.
Yes, it is.
And here's the funny thing. I'm 63. What's the hardest thing to learn? Embrace the obvious. So I have that, and then I'll be doing a workshop in my office here, a live one for some strength coaches I'm about do 2 or 3 of those in the next couple of months.
Cool.
But it's just, I'm just doing my best to, get it out there,
Yeah.
If the gentle listeners remember, my YouTube channel has about, it's got to have 6 to 10 1-hour workshops that I put together this last year.
Take advantage of it. Definitely.
I did. And I know it's boring and you watch my ugly face the whole time, but I did my best,
Yeah, we're going to link all that in the show notes. We're also going to give away some DVDs. Got a big old box of Dan John DVDs. Big box I want to give away. So help us out here. If you like what we're doing, comment, subscribe, share, review, email me at patflynn@chroniclesofstrength.com with a snapshot, a screenshot of whatever you did. You're on the honor system. I'm not going to audit you. And we'll pick a few winners.
You're a delight. You are a delight, my friend.
All right, Dan, always a pleasure. And we'll coordinate a time for our next swing session. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do that. And again, I don't try to be vague. I'm not, I'm not, it's just when I have this 3 times a year, I have this week where I go to all my, the dentist, the blood donation. I have a doctor's appointment today at 11:30. I try to jam them all in about a 2 or 3 day cluster. So by the Wednesday afternoon, about 4, I'll be driving home and I'll be like, oh, thank God that's behind me for, 4 months.
Awesome. Well, hey, we'll get it done. We all know that you're good to your word, if anybody is. So looking forward to it, Dan.
All right, my friend. And good luck with you and your babies. And I'm glad you're over the flu.
See you next week.
Looking forward to it. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.